It's time for
DodgerHeads. What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Medium Large Sports Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Bruce Kuntz. Apologies to those live on YouTube. We are running a little bit late because Bruce, myself, and Justin Lorber just did a full hour on the Dodgers farm system. That'll post tomorrow. So Bruce and I doing double duty. That ran long. So apologies for being a few minutes late, but you've got an hour extra of Dodgers content coming your way tomorrow morning. We have a ton to get into tonight. We are going to break down the state of the Dodgers, which is not a good state for anybody that's been watching. We are going to talk injury updates. We're going to do a Dodgers-Padres series preview. We might talk a little farm system, ranked number one. But, Bruce, I have to start with the most important news story of the day, and it's a shout-out for my guy Parker Bell over at ESPN LA, who was interviewing Will Smith today and asked him whether he liked Willie Dills or the janitor better as nicknames, and he said, quote, "It's cool, I think," in Will Smith's own way. So the real story here, Bruce, is Will Smith is in on the janitor, or at least he's not out on it.
There you go. Hey, I mean, anything from Will Smith that I don't think that I've heard the janitor yet. So I'll add that to the Rolodex. That you invented it, I assume, based on the reaction?
I definitely invented it. I can assure you there's nobody else in the world taking credit for that nickname. So safely I can say I invented it.
I'll pass along the credit then. I'll start using it, and I'll make sure everybody knows where it came from.
Yeah, good. I would not start using it if you intend to remain liked by any of the people around you, if my experience is anything. But yeah, it's the janitor because all he does is clean up, Bruce. Guys on the bases, all Will Smith does is clean up. Again, Parker Bell, ESPN LA, explained this to Will Smith. Will Smith, not a great interview, to be honest. Love Will Smith. Not a great talker. He said the janitor, Blake's spreading fake news. Blake's a big fake news guy, so it makes sense in the chat. But you can see him mouth the word the janitor and then say it's cool afterwards. So as Parker Bell said, 2 for 2 on the nicknames with Will Smith. But in all seriousness, let's dive into Dodgers and the state of this franchise, because I know we've got people in the chat that want to talk about this, that want to process this. We had a live show 2 nights ago. I was on social media last night. The Dodgers have lost 4 in a row. And Bruce, I find myself today caught between 2 very conflicted feelings. The first is there is absolutely no denying how bad and how painful it is to watch this group play baseball and lose baseball games right now. And it's not just that they are losing, it's how they are losing. It's the hope they give you and then the hope they take away with either flukes or bad decisions or bad baseball, depending on how you want to categorize it. But if you just look at the 4-game losing streak we're in the midst of, the first one was the Toronto finale. They had a 3-1 lead in this game. Treinen blows it with back-to-back homers in the 8th. They load the bases in the 8th. They load the bases in the 9th. They had 7 walks in 2 innings, and they scored 1 run, going 0 for 3 with the bases loaded. They lose by 1. Angels, game 1, they get their doors blown off. They're down 7-0 before the game even starts. Angels, game 2, the Dodgers open the scoring. They give it right back. They tie it up. They give it right back in the 3rd and the 4th. They take the lead in the 9th, but then they blow it in the 9th. They don't score in the 10th, and they give up a run in the bottom of the 10th. In that game, they had 2 double plays and a triple play in the first 6 innings alone and lost by 1. Lastly, Angels, game 3, up 3-0 before Shohei Ohtani even takes the mound. They're up 5-2 through 4. They blow it in the 8th. Freeland strikes out in the 1st on what should have been ball 4, maybe continues the inning, maybe gets the pitcher out, maybe it's a different game. Page's home run robbed, grounder off Enriquez's glove. They lose by 1. So nobody is going to come on this show and tell you they're not playing poorly or that it's not that bad, because it is. And yet, Bruce, the dilemma, the conflict inside of me is that when I go to bed and I wake up this morning, and maybe this is the eternal optimist in me, although I would suggest that some projections and Vegas seem to agree, I imagine a world where the Dodgers are in the playoffs and they're as healthy as they're projected to be. The guys who are expected to come back, come back. And I still like my chances with this team. And I don't know what to do with those two things. Tom Verducci went on Foul Territory and maybe summed it up best. He was asked, Dodgers or Padres? And he basically crapped on the Dodgers for 90 consecutive seconds and then picked the Dodgers anyways. Like, I think I'm there. I crap on this team. And yet when we get to the postseason, I think I still like their chances. Where are you at?
Yeah, baseball is a game of ebb and flows. That is intrinsic to the nature of it. It's impossible to predict. It's impossible to ride a high too long. It's impossible to ride a low too long. And the part where you break from the natural and get into where it is so frustrating here lately is the Dodgers have a combination of nothing is going their way, and they're also not doing the things that they can control at an ability at a level that we're used to them being able to do. There's so many little mistakes being made. There's just fundamental parts of the game that aren't being done correctly that we've never seen from this group of guys that these are savvy veterans that everywhere they've gone in their entire baseball lives, the thing they are known for is doing all the little things correctly, scoring runners from third base with one out, not making little tiny mistakes that wind up adding up and creating losing streaks like the Dodgers have had here lately. So my answer is I still think this team is too talented, and it's built with a bunch of guys that know the mistakes they've been making. And even though those mistakes have been happening, I still have faith that they'll be corrected in some way. And the pendulum of luck will also swing a little bit too. It's like I said, been a combination of everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. And then there's things that they can control that they haven't controlled in their way either. So both those aspects, I think, will swing. Ultimately, this roster, this rotation, this offense, there's just too many talented guys to continue playing like they're a replacement level team. They're not. So the Dodgers are going to be in October. They're not going to be looking like they're some huge underdog. They're not a wild card team. You can still look at this roster at any time and say this team can beat anybody because they've got all the former MVPs. They've got one of the best rotations ever assembled. Literally, if the guys are just on the field, this team's too good to count all the way out. But there absolutely are some things they need to turn around to play to the ceiling that this team is supposed to have.
And I think the thing that I'm struck by when I see the narrative and the discourse around this team is I find myself believing I don't have to choose between this team sucks right now and this team can still win the World Series. Like, I think we can say both of those things, and it feels contradictory, but that's why I liked Verducci's rant on Foul Territory, because he crapped on this team for 90 seconds and how they are playing now, and yet said, if I could put it in my own words, but if I wake up in October and the postseason starts, and it's Snell, it's Glasnow, it's Yamamoto, and it's Ohtani coming out of the Dodgers rotation. And if Tanner Scott is healthy, and if Blake Trinan is right, and if Michael Kopech is back, and by the way, this team leads Major League Baseball in runs scored this season, like, none of those things are like 99th percentile outcomes for this Dodgers roster. And it does not. I want people to hear me. This does not take away from what we are all watching and miserably enduring as far as how the Dodgers are playing right now. It does not change any of that. All I'm saying is both of those things, in my estimation, Bruce, can be true. We can watch this team and say, this sucks, and yet it doesn't mean it's going to suck forever.
Yeah, and there has not been a season in the Dodger history or in baseball history where a really good team makes it all the way through without any kind of bump in the road. We're in a very huge speed bump right now, a speed bump that's bigger than what we've been used to in recent years. I know for me in these last few weeks, there's been multiple games that when I turn off the TV or I'm walking out of Dodger Stadium, I'm saying to myself, I am pissed. And I'm not a guy who normally gets that way. I'm usually a person who understands it's a 162 game marathon. There's going to be ebbs and flows, and I'm able to ride it out usually. There's been so many preventable losses in this stretch that it's been a lot tougher to stomach. But still, the point stands that baseball is a sport of downswings and upswings, and there will be an upswing coming eventually because this group is just too talented for that not to happen. And there's so much veteran leadership. There's so many guys that know what they're doing in running this ball club that I just have faith that a lot of those preventable mistakes are going to be corrected because there's too many minds that know what's going wrong. There's the guys like Miguel Rojas, the Freddie Freemans, the Mookie Bettses that are these savvy veterans that they know how to play the game right. And when they make these little mistakes, they know that they made those mistakes and they're going back to their lockers and they're going on the drive home and thinking, what am I doing? It's like for a player, when you make a mistake like that, when you know you're better, it's a betrayal to yourself and it eats at you just as much as it eats at all the fans that are watching and getting insanely frustrated. And those players know they want to correct those things. So this team is just too good to continue playing this way.
And I see people in the chat. It's fair. Hey, Jeff, Bruce, that's a lot of ifs. If this happens, if this guy comes back, if they stay healthy, totally fair. What I would suggest is there's a lot of ifs on this team continuing to suck as well. Like, well, if the bullpen continues to be dreadful, if Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Emmett Sheehan, and Shohei Ohtani all suck for 3 games in a row, like those ifs have to continue to come true as well for the ultimate doom and gloom narrative to play out. And so the reality, as like most things in life, it's probably something in the middle. The Dodgers probably won't get Kopech, Treinen, and Scott, and Brock Stewart all back. Maybe they get 2.5 of those guys back by the end. But while that is happening, maybe some of the guys in the bullpen get a little bit better. And maybe Mookie Betts continues to bounce back. And maybe the pitching staff normalizes a little bit, right? Like there's ifs for this thing. There's ways, there's dials that could be turned for this thing to go completely sideways, the direction it's been. And there's also dials for how this thing could get better, I think. And the question is, which probabilities, which potential if scenarios you think are going to play out is ultimately how you make these decisions. Now, I wrote down a list, Bruce, that I want to share with you of 3.5 reasons to be optimistic, and then 3 reasons or 2.5 reasons, I can't remember, to be pessimistic. Should we start with pessimism? Maybe we should start with pessimism and end with optimism here. Here's 3 reasons for pessimism with this team. And again, as I share this with people listening via podcast, those with us live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, I probably don't have to vocalize these things, but I'm going to anyways. Here's the reason for pessimism. The stretch that the Dodgers are in of struggling is not a blip on the radar. On May 15th, they beat the A's 19-2 and were 14 games over 500. In the 77 games since, they are 39-38. If you want to go even sooner, July 3rd, they beat the White Sox 6-2 to go 24 games above 500. In their last 33 games, the Dodgers are 12-21. They have not won 3 games in a row since July 3rd. They have lost 3 games in a row 4 separate times over that stretch. So there's reason number 1. We're not talking about an extremely small sample size. This has been a 500 club for 77 games. Second, I'm a believer in momentum. The Padres are 14-3 over their last 17, and they're really talented. When the Giants were good at the beginning of the season, I came on this show and said, it's a fluke, don't buy it. This is going to fall apart. It did. The Padres are not built like that, and they're hot, and they're motivated. So that's a second reason to be pessimistic about the team. The third one is the short-term problems that the Dodgers have lack obvious solutions. Now, short-term problems, right? The corner outfield. There's not somebody sitting at AAA, unless you're the biggest Ryan Ward fan. There's not somebody sitting at AAA or even really on the injured list that you're like, well, when this guy comes back in the next couple of days, things are going to be better. Same with the bullpen. The bullpen guys are coming back, but we're talking weeks and not days, and that doesn't help a team that is 12-21 in their last 33. So those are reasons why I would be pessimistic, and I understand the pessimism. Is there anything that you would add to that list?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that those are all concerning things, and especially when you look at the Padres, like they just got so much better at the trade deadline. They picked up all the mojo at the trade deadline. The whole baseball world was looking at them and saying, "Hey, look who's making big moves. Look who's trying to dethrone the Dodgers." And then the Dodgers came out of the deadline flat, and it feels like that is what's happening. It is already what's happened. The Padres are in first place in the National League West on August 14th. That is not something that I expected to be a remote possibility, and here we are. So the Padres have all the mojo in the world. The Dodgers have none of it. That is a very, very big reason to be concerned about this weekend. The thing that I would sort of push back on when I look at this Dodger team and I think about what they're going to be capable of, I'm not thinking about the Padres. I'm not worried about what the Padres are doing. The Padres can do whatever they're doing. I still think the Dodgers control their own destiny, because when the Dodgers are playing their best baseball, they're the best team in baseball. And if they just get back to playing like themselves, I'm still willing to say that no matter how bad this gets, no matter how, if the Dodgers play like themselves, they're still the best team in the National League West and the best team in the National League, and they're the defending champions and the best team in baseball. So it might not spell good things for this weekend. The Padres have every reason to go into LA feeling like they can at least win the series, if not worse than that. But when you extend it out over the rest of the year, you've still got a lot of baseball left to play, a month and a half, and then you go into the playoffs. I still think things have a good chance to even out.
Totally agree with you. Let's talk 3.5 reasons for optimism here. The first one is health, as I mentioned. If you look at the overall season stats, I kind of referenced this. Offensively, the Dodgers lead baseball in runs scored and weighted runs created plus. They're second in walk rate, 13th in strikeout rate, fourth in average, and second in home runs. Offense has not been the issue. The issue has been pitching. Starting pitching has been last in innings pitched this season. They are 18th in ERA, 21st in FIP, meaning the 18th in ERA is not just bad luck. They might be slightly fortunate. They're 5th in strikeout rate and 26th in walk rate. The relievers, I don't need to tell you, have also been struggling. They lead the league in innings pitched. They are 20th in ERA. They are 17th in FIP. They are 8th in strikeout rate. They are 15th in walk rate. And I don't need to give you any stats to tell you the Dodgers defense has also not been very good. So when I say there's reason for optimism, I would say this. From a health perspective, the Dodgers starting rotation for the first time all year is finally healthy in the last week, 2 weeks or so, which means in theory, there's going to be a trickle-down effect. The starting pitching ERA is going to improve. The starting pitching innings pitched is going to improve. And therefore, the bullpen is going to work less, and the bullpen is going to get better in shorter, more rested increments. I would also add the prognosis health-wise on a lot of the guys in the bullpen, Tanner Scott, Michael Kopech, Kirby Yates, I forget who else I'm forgetting, but Brock Stewart, thank you. They're all positive on those guys as potentially coming back. And so there's a reason for optimism, not short-term, but long-term. Number one would be health. Number two, this is via Cy on Twitter, so shout out to Cy. The Dodgers this season are 19-7 against the NL West this year. They have dominated the NL West. Well, guess what? 27 of their next 41 games are against the NL West. So there's a reason to like your chances. Number three, they've been there before. Like, this team has gone and been through wars. They were down 2-1 in San Diego in the NLDS. So they know what it's like to have their backs against the wall. They know what it's like to go through the war. So I like that. And here's the half reason. The Dodgers, by record, play the easiest schedule in the league from here on out. A .468 winning percentage. The reason this is a half bit of optimism is because the Padres are second at .470. And the only reason the Dodgers record, like strength of schedule, is a little bit better is like .002. Okay, so both play the Mariners, Reds, Rockies, and Orioles, but the Dodgers do get 4 extra games against the Giants and 3 extra games against the Diamondbacks. Those are replaced by the Mets and Twins for the Padres. So schedule-wise, there's reason for optimism again, whether you're comparing them to the Padres or just the rest of the league. The run-in is easy. Now, whether or not they take advantage of it or not, Bruce, remains to be seen. So again, reasons for optimism: health, the NL West matchups coming up, which they have dominated. They've been there before, and even slightly, they have an easier road in than the Padres.
The big one that stands out for me in terms of a reason to be optimistic is the health of the starting rotation. If these guys, this group is on the field, like you talked about, the way that it bleeds over into the bullpen, the first part is having a great starting rotation means you win baseball games. That is why starting rotation is prioritized more than bullpen, because if you have a good starter that can keep the other team low while you take a lead, that is the formula to win baseball games. And the Dodgers have such a good rotation and guys that you can turn to and expect, you know, you need to pick up the slack today, get a little deeper in the game. They have guys that you can say that to. And when you look at so many of the bullpen struggles here, you can look at last night as an exact example of Edgardo Enriquez out there should not have been pitching in that game. He had an up down the day before. Dave Roberts said it after the game. He did not want to have to go to Edgardo yesterday, and he still had to. And Enriquez went out there and gave up a base hit that gave the Angels the winning runs. So much of that has been happening in the stretch where the bullpen's been bad, and it's because they've had to turn to guys that are tired, guys that wouldn't normally be in the big leagues but had to get called up because the rest of the bullpen was down that day. There's been so many examples of that where there's been guys pitching that won't be on the playoff roster. There's been guys pitching that will be way more rested when they're on the playoff roster. And it's not going to continue that way if the rotation can stay healthy and can perform like they're supposed to. That is really going to be a big trickle-down effect into the bullpen.
Yeah, I'm with you. And again, people can call us homers. They can call us optimists. They can call us whatever they want. I always joke with people. Guess what? I felt this way last year when the doom and gloomers came for the Dodgers, and I was vindicated. So I might I might die on this hill. Last year, we celebrated on this hill. We'll see what happens. Let's get to some super chats here. We appreciate all of those. Jose says, are the Dodgers still ruining baseball? They're ruining my mental health. Do you think we ended up in a sunk cost fallacy with Michael Conforto. A lot of people calling for Michael Conforto to be DFA'd. What do you think is the next move with Conforto, Bruce?
Yeah, I think time's running short for sure, because we had a slight bit of time there where it seemed like things were turning around, and then now we've gotten right back into where it's even worse than it was at the start of the season for Conforto. The issue there, like you can look back to last year, they cut Jason Hayward when he was playing way better, way more value to the roster than Conforto has right now. But they cut Jason Hayward because Kevin Kiermaier was on the roster and there was a crunch and somebody had to go. This whole time with Conforto, there's been nobody ready to step up and take his spot. And so it's really a matter of like, if you cut Conforto, who's going to take those at bats? And do you have faith that that position is going to be better? And I don't think that there has been an example of a place you can turn for that. Like right now, if you cut Conforto, it's going to be a lot of Alex Call taking his at bats against right-handed pitching. And that's not why they traded for Alex Call. He hasn't been very good since he got over here in the trade deadline. So it's like, if you want to cut Conforto, I think you should have to, in that same tweet, or if you're yelling on the street, whatever it is, you should have to provide an exact plan as to who is going to take his at-bats. And when the Dodgers haven't cut Conforto, it's not a matter of looking in the past, because you could look in the past and say there's a ton of guys that could play better than Conforto has this year. Yeah. Sure. It's about looking into the future. The Dodgers still don't think that this is who Michael Conforto is, and you can disagree with that.
You have reason to.
Yeah, there is absolutely reason to. But they keep running him out there because they think that they're not looking at his past numbers. They're looking at what they project his numbers to be, and there hasn't been a better replacement than what they think he'll provide.
The obvious answer that I don't even have to look in the comments right now to guess is Ryan Ward. You cover the Dodgers prospects in depth. You follow the minor league teams. We've talked a number of times about Ryan Ward on here. We know the deficiencies. The defensive profile is very, very bad. Like as bad, if not worse than what we've seen in the corner outfield from the Dodgers so far. He's basically a first baseman that they've thrown in the corner because they just want him to play there. We know the offensive numbers in AAA are really, really good. As I've pointed out, James Outman had better offensive numbers at AAA, and we saw how that played out. So how would you respond, Bruce, as a guy who knows more about OKC and Ryan Ward than I do? How would you respond to the person that says DFA Michael Conforto, and to answer your question, and replace him with Ryan Ward?
Yeah, so if you asked me that 2 weeks ago, I would have said 0% chance. When you ask me it today, I would say like 5%. I just don't think it's a likely thing because even as Michael Conforto struggles really bad, there is a track record. There's a history of big league success. And Ryan Ward just doesn't have that. He hasn't debuted in the major leagues yet. And once you make that decision, especially given that there isn't really anybody behind Ward, like let's say you do make that choice, you cut bait with Conforto, he's gone. You bring up Ward and it goes terribly, then what the heck do you do from there? And I know that the easy response to that is like, if you keep running Conforto out there, you could be in the same spot. But cutting Conforto is really, you have to be betting the house on Ryan Ward to come up and be a really good platoon outfielder. And I just don't think that that's a likely enough outcome compared to Conforto figuring it out. And I know that everybody is going to hate me for that. Michael Conforto has looked really bad. I don't think he's going to be an above average hitter this year, but I don't think that Ryan Ward has a better chance to be better than Conforto. They might both be in a tough spot, but I don't think that Ward is ahead of Conforto at this point.
Agreed. 300. I just don't see how we make the bullpen healthy down the stretch. Scott, Kopech, and Yates have not exactly been locked down this year. I think this is a totally fair critique, which is cool. These guys might come back. But even if they come back, Tanner Scott was not very good. Kirby Yates was not very good. Michael Kopech we saw for like 2 innings. I think this is fair. I've said before, Bruce, I believe in Tanner Scott. If he's healthy, I'm gonna get to a place of trust with him. Michael Kopech, I think is like a tier below, but he's definitely an upgrade over the other guys that they currently have in that bullpen. And Yates, on the bullpen show the other day, I said Yates is outside of my 10-man postseason bullpen. So that goes to show you where I am with Kirby Yates. But what do you think about these 3 guys? And if they do come back healthy, do you think you'll be able to trust any of them?
Yeah, Tanner Scott's the closer. If he comes back healthy, you have to trust him. And it's a matter of the roster is built around him being the lockdown back end guy. And I still think that that's who he should be. So I trust Tanner Scott. Kopech and Yates, I'm not at all in the same breath of trust, but if they both come back healthy, I don't know if you really have the option to say that, we're not going to have them on the roster, or we're not going to at least give them a great chance to prove that they can be reliable in the bullpen. They both have a track record. Kopech was so great last year, and this year's been a train wreck, but he really hasn't been healthy. And if he gets back, then that's assuming that he is healthy again. So I would give him the runway to try and figure it out. And then Kirby Yates has been a veteran for so long. I think that my hope is that when he went on the injured list for the hamstring might have been nagging at him a little bit before he went on the IL and could have been dragging down the production, or at least while he's been rehabbing, he's been working on refinding his splitter, because the big thing for Yates was before he went on the IL, he just lost his best pitch. And that splitter is why he's been in the big leagues this long. All of a sudden he couldn't throw it. And so like you take away a really one pitch reliever, then you've got nothing left. So if he's found that splitter again, then I think Kirby Yates can be part of the bullpen in the playoffs as well.
Absolutely. Francisco says, I've started calling them the McCourt era lookalikes with how bad they've been losing. They also look like they want to be a visiting team on September 30th. We appreciate the super chat. I remember the McCourt era Dodgers, and these are where I think our comparisons get a little out of whack. Maybe the level of like the gap between reality and expectations is similar to the McCourt era, but that's because expectations back then were so much lower. That was like, man, it'd be cool if they made the playoffs. You might have been really disappointed in the team then, but we would have killed for a team that looked like this in the McCourt era is all I would say. Aaron says, this team isn't fun to watch, but our goals are still in reach. Last postseason felt hopeless and ended in a parade. I believe in the guys. They'll turn it around and remind us who they are. It sounds like that's exactly where Bruce and I are in our feelings. Laura with the super chat. The reason this doesn't ring true is because they've been playing like this for months. Example, Yankees. Again, Laura, you've been watching the show, commenting for a while, so you are intelligent, and you're the people that hold the opinion like this. I don't think they are like completely misinformed. It's just a respectful disagreement. When it comes to, as I pointed out, this team's a 500 team in the last 77 games. So to Laura's point, that is fair. The question that I think needs to be asked is, why has this been a 500 team for the last 77 games? And is there any reason to believe it is going to be different moving forward? That's where we're going to disagree. We agree on the 77 games, 500 record, bad team. What the difference is how big of a deal do you think Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow and Shohei Ohtani all being inserted into the rotation is going to make? Do you think that's a big deal or no deal or something in between, right? Like, how much do you project about the bullpen getting healthier or even just getting better if they start to work less? So those are the questions that I would ask. And again, very smart people can come to the conclusion, hey, yes, the rotation's going to be better, but who cares? Not a needle mover. And I don't believe any of the relievers are going to come back. To each their own. That's just how I personally, Bruce, get to the optimistic place.
The big thing that I keep reminding myself to stay sane during this whole thing is the marathon is so much different than the sprint. And we're in the marathon that has been very, very rough on the Dodgers here in this middle part of the year. Just about everything that could go wrong, it's felt like has gone wrong. And I think it still is worth reminding everybody, right? Like most teams, if they hit a stretch where it feels like they're playing as far below expectations as the Dodgers have been for these last 70 plus games, they would be where the Braves are right now, where the Braves' whole roster has been hurt the whole year, and they're not even close. They're not competing for the playoffs in August. They're out of it. The Dodgers just lost first place. It is not like that this is beyond saving. And that's the big thing to keep at the front of your mind. Like this middle part of the year, it felt like everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. The bullpen's been terrible. So much of the performance has been below where we expect it to be. And yet the Dodgers are like, if the season ended today, they're still in the playoffs. And that does not feel satisfying, but totally. It's worth the reminder of like, it's not like that everything's over and you still have a month and a half to try and get back on track and win the division. And that matters, but there's still time to do that. And it's not like that the season is a lost cause at this point.
Totally. Tyler says, y'all doing the Lord's work, talking fans off the ledge. So we're doing our best. The Sandwich says, trading for Stewart and keeping Conforto feels like punting a season. Counting on banged up dudes to show up is risky business. Look, I liked the Brock Stewart move. It came with risk. That risk has been realized. Not trading for an outfielder. Again, the guys who were out there, I liked Laureano. He's continued to be good. I wish they would have made a move like that. it feels like, again, I would just add, is there a gap between punting the season and going all in at the trade deadline? Like, is there a middle ground of like, man, I wish they would have done more, but I don't think the season is over because they didn't do anything? Because that's kind of where I would fall on this one.
And the big thing is, like, you can wish they would have done more. I wish they would have done more.
Totally.
And I know this is going to sound crazy to the people who think I'm a prospect hugger and all of that, but I absolutely wish the Dodgers did more. But the thing that I wish is I wish it lined up where they could do more, right? Because ultimately trading for Brock Stewart, yes, he has the injury history, but trading for Brock Stewart did not set in stone the timeline where he was going to be hurt right now. That's just how it played out. They could have traded for Yon Duran and he could have got hurt too. Like, it's a matter of probabilities, and Dodgers aren't going to look back and see where they are right now and apply those exact same standards to the trade deadline and wish they could go back. Not to mention it's a futile exercise anyway. Worry about where the roster is right now and move from there. But the Dodgers, it didn't line up, right? It didn't line up for them to go after Kwan. It didn't line up for them to go after Duran or another big time reliever. And now here we are, right? So Brock Stewart could have stayed healthy. The good thing is he should be back for the playoffs, and I'm still in a place. I know that they just lost first place, but I'm still in a place where thinking about the playoffs is the priority, not just getting there. And that has to be a thing at the front of your mind right now. But I still have confidence they'll get there. And if Brock Stewart's back for the playoffs, then that still matters a lot. And I still think that it was a good move for that reason. Yeah.
David says, would we rather have our host be an optimist or a negative Nelly? I choose optimist. Keep our hopes up, Jeff. I appreciate it. And again, I would add, there's lots of other shows out there. If you want somebody to just pander to the doom and gloom, like DodgerHeads is the wrong show for you. There are lots of other Dodger shows that you might be familiar with that'll give you that content. So we appreciate you being a part of us here, though. And David, thank you for the super chat. Fritz, I'm not letting Anaheim spin me into the season is doomed thinking. With 41 games left and a 68-52 record, don't we just need to play a little better than 500 ball to secure a playoff spot? Up and to the right. They've got about a 5.5 game lead over the last wild card spot right now, which I can't believe we're bringing that number up, but that's a real number at this point in the 2025 Dodgers season. So with 41 games to go, a 5.5 game lead over the last wild card, a handful of teams in between there. So we're aspiring to better than 500 baseball, Bruce, but I think the point stands, which is to get there, a lot would need to go wrong. Now, I gave you two numbers, 77 games, 500 baseball team, 33 games, one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball. So which of those two is more predictive of the future will go a long way to determining how this season ends.
I just think, like, to the point that I just said, like, it's felt like this is the worst chunk of Dodger season that we've had in ever since this, era of winning started. It hasn't been this bad. And they still, in the last 77 games, are playing 500 ball. Other teams' floor is much, much worse than that. And I don't think it really can get worse than it has been over these last couple of months. So I don't think the Dodgers are going to play this last month and a half and have it get even worse than it has been. So if it's staying the same, playing 500-ish ball and still making it through the playoffs and then see what happens, or if it's rebounding, which I think is the most likely outcome, then neither of those things are getting worse and winding up missing the playoffs. So I'm not by any means saying it's a guarantee the Dodgers get to the playoffs. When you're in a wild card spot, you have to prioritize making the playoffs, and you can't just assume that's going to happen. Yeah. But in my opinion, I don't think that that's a probability that is very likely to happen.
Yeah, Fangraphs, I mentioned this the other night. It's like a 99% chance of the Dodgers making the playoffs, and it was like a 70% chance of winning the division. This was Tuesday, so they lost. Padres won. Those numbers have probably changed a little bit. A few more super chats here. The Sandwich says, while things aren't great, we've seen stranger things. Baseball is baseball, and the Dodgers have done more with less. I think that's a great point there. Jose says, not to rehash this, but we have to ask ourselves why we are in a position where Ward is our only option to replace him. Aren't we numbers guys? 182 average, Michael Conforto, with the batting average. This, I think, is a fair question of why are we in a spot where it was Conforto, it was James Outman, it was Estuary Ruiz, it was Justin Dean, it was Ryan Ward. Like, Bruce, how did we end up in a spot where that was the list of options? Although I guess you could add Tommy Edman, Kike Hernandez, some other names probably belong in the list as well.
Right. I think that you got to it with that last point. It's been some of the insurance policies aren't here right now with Edman, with Hernandez. You've got a combination of that. Yeah. you've got a combination of that. You've got the farm system is just, we just finished talking about the prospects. It's a lot of lower level talent right now, and it's a lot of outfield talent, but they're all in the lower minor leagues. So that doesn't help. That's not really something you can control. You go out and get your talented guys, and that's just the phase that you're in right now. And so I think that when I look back at the trade deadline, if I were to pinpoint a thing that I wish they did differently, it would be going and getting a major league outfielder that was at least an insurance policy to Conforto, because they traded for Alex Call, but the point behind that move was not to be replacing Conforto if Conforto didn't turn it around. And I think they could have done that a little better, even if it was just a fringe acquisition. And you've mentioned Ramon Laureano a lot. It's tough because the Padres got him and they paid a hefty price to get him alongside O'Hearn. But going out and getting somebody that would have been prepared to step in if you need to cut Conforto probably would have been a good idea, because now we're in a spot where, like Jose said in the super chat, you don't have any good options. You only have bad options that you need to choose which one is less bad.
Yeah, and the Dodgers might sit here and say, the reason we got here is because Conforto is a total flop, which I would argue, whether you loved or hated him, you probably didn't see this coming. Kike Hernandez, who to some degree was the insurance policy, is injured. Tommy Edman, who as a utility guy was the insurance policy, is injured. And then they had a bunch of guys where it's like, I don't know, maybe Outman figures it out, or maybe we go and trade for Estuary Ruiz and he provides a little bit of value. Like, it feels like they threw 5 darts at the board and went 0 for 5 at this point. Now, were those darts all worth throwing? Like, was it a good bet to bet on Outman or Estuary Ruiz or Kike Hernandez to be good and healthy for Tommy? Like, those are fair questions, but we're just trying to give you the answer to how they got here. So for what it's worth, again, could they have done more at the deadline? Absolutely. So Laura says, I think the Padres 6 games will determine the division. We cannot afford anything less than a split here. Let's talk Dodgers Padres because it starts tomorrow night. Michael King was set to pitch for the Padres tomorrow and then was placed on the injured list today. Randy Vasquez was recalled. He has not been named the starter. He did throw like almost 60 pitches, I believe, on Sunday. You've got Kershaw, Snell, and Glasnow pitching for the Dodgers. And then again, to be announced, Dylan Cease and Yu Darvish for the Padres. This is a big one. It's in Dodger Stadium. They're going to play 6 times in the next 10 days, I believe it is. But these are the 3 home ones. So how monumental are these 3 games in your mind, Bruce?
They're huge. They're absolutely huge. But I think that I stop a little bit short of saying like this is a playoff series, because it's not. The Dodgers could theoretically, they could get swept and they could still win the division, because that would put you 4 games back. And with a month and a half left to play, that's not an impossible thing to overcome. Yeah, it would put you behind the 8 ball for sure. But we have to remember and stay grounded that even as it feels like we're running off the cliff, it's mid-August. There's a lot of baseball left to play, and there's a lot of games on the schedule to overcome any kind of deficit. That said, it absolutely is a huge series because you have a chance to take all of the terrible mojo that the Dodgers have. You have a chance to take all the positive mojo that the Padres have and flip both those things completely on their heads if you just perform well in this 3-game series this weekend and then the next 3 as well. So it's a great opportunity. It's not a playoff series where if things don't go perfect, then the season is over. But it absolutely is a great chance to try and get off this stretch of baseball where it feels like we have to hop on here every week and be doomers or feel like that there's no chance the Dodgers repeat as champions.
And it's worth pointing out the Dodgers are 5-2 against the Padres this season. Now, how much power moving forward that holds remains to be seen. I'm curious for you, how testy do you think this series gets? We know how the last one went. Obviously, Ohtani kind of allowed things to simmer down by taking the hit by pitch, by becoming friends with Suarez at the All-Star game. It seemed like making jokes with him about it. But I would venture to guess, Bruce, that I don't think somebody is going to like intentionally start this. Mm-hmm. However, at some point, somebody's going to get hit. And I think from there, it's a total wild card as to who responds and how.
I think it is a wild card, but I don't think it's going to be as much fireworks as some people may expect or hope for, because I think that the Dodgers playing at home, it's in the Dodgers' advantage to keep things grounded and not have all those extracurriculars go. I think the Padres are the team that get better when you reach those uncharted territories. And it's the guys like Tatis and Machado, they rise to those moments. If there's people booing and there's bad blood between the two teams, those are the guys that thrive. I think the Dodgers are a team and a clubhouse that are going to go into this series and say, we're not worried about those guys, right? If a lot of Dodger fans like to call the Padres little brothers, that's how the Dodgers could think about this. Like the Padres are that team down south. It's another team on our schedule. We're going to go in here and try to get back onto our game of baseball, and we're not going to worry about who we're playing. I think that's the approach the Dodgers have to take into this series, because if they try and build it up in their heads to be some huge thing, then that could wind up snowballing, and you wind up trying to press too hard, and some of the mistakes they've already been making could compound.
Let me propose a counter, though. I almost wonder if the Dodgers need this to get testy, because the critique of this Dodgers team over the last 3 weeks has been they're asleep, they lack focus, there's no urgency, there's no drive, yada, yada, yada. I almost wonder if the Dodgers need this thing to get a little sideways. They need something to rally around. They need some smelling salts under their nostrils to kind of get them out of bed and snap them out of this funk that they've been in. I'm not suggesting that with Clayton Kershaw on the mound, they're going to throw at somebody. But like, I just wonder if that were to happen, or if there was a situation in which the game was out of hand one way or the other, or it's a 3-0 count and some relief pitcher that you feel somewhat comfortable with ends up throwing a little bit inside. Like, I just wonder if that's the type of thing that snaps this group out of the funk they're in.
Yeah, I hear you for sure. And I think there's a lot of the fan base that would agree with you way more than they agree with me right now. I think about when the Dodgers are playing their best baseball through this whole stretch, there's a level of control to it. There's a feeling like the Dodgers are in there and they are in complete control of the situation. It's Dodger Stadium. There's no worry about anything. There's not any huge spiraling of emotions. It's a very composed control and dominance, right? And the Dodgers have strayed from that so far. It's certainly possible that a shot in the rear to really rise up to the occasion and feel like you're playing a playoff series, that could help. But I just kind of look at this group, and in my opinion, I think it would serve them the best to try and pretend like they're not in this terrible rut, pretend like it's last year, pretend like it's the year before, where they're going to roll in and say, we're the best team in baseball, we're the best operation in baseball, and the Padres are trying to treat this like their World Series. We're not going to. We're going to come in and win the series like it's a regular series that's important, but we know how to do this already, and we're just going to take care of business.
Yeah, and maybe just the Padres coming to town is what they need to wake them up. Maybe they just need the vibes around a Dodgers-Padres, whether it's a rivalry or not. Leave that to you to decide. But maybe they just need the intensity that comes with this series to kind of be what gets them going. They just need something to go their way, it feels like, to snap them out of it. So maybe they find that pretty soon. Hawaiian Kira says, did they burn sage in the locker room today? Good question, Hawaiian Kira. We'll get our people on that and get back to you on this. I love this from Gabriel. People complaining Conforto is the worst Dodger ever, and I'm here saying and asking, so Andrew Jones gets a pass. Gabriel, you and I are on the same page. Every time Hall of Fame voting comes out, I get my 7-minute Andrew Jones rant off my chest. He does not deserve to be a Hall of Famer simply because of what he did as a Dodger during that stretch. If you want to understand Andrew Jones, if you weren't there, the offense was as bad, maybe worse, I'd have to go check the numbers, as what you're seeing from Conforto. But also it was a multi-year contract. It was like the highest AAV that I think the Dodgers had ever given out, or it was like the highest AAV in Major League Baseball at the time. And the worst part was, the reason he sucked so bad is because he didn't care. He came in completely overweight. There was no effort. It was bad attitude. He was a problem child. So bad that they cut him and just basically ate a year and a half of like $18 million a year salary. And this was like 15 years ago or whatever. So as far as I'm concerned, Andrew Jones is in a tier of his own. At least Conforto seems to care, and I think is trying. You could not say those two things about Andrew Jones when they signed him.
Yeah, Conforto, it's been obvious all year that I think that he carries himself with an air of levelness on the field that probably frustrates some people. When he grounds into a double play, you don't see Conforto taking off his helmet and chucking it, or biking his bat in the back rat. He doesn't do that kind of stuff. I still think that's a good thing, because baseball is a game where you can't get too high or too low. But obviously it makes sense to say that it's frustrating not to see him have some kind of emotion show through sometimes, but he cares. The Dodgers know he cares. Otherwise he would have been gone long ago. Yeah,
absolutely. Jay says, love you both, by the way. With Brusdar out, Roki's 95-mile-an-hour fastball, I think that's being generous, and Brock Stewart's injury, what does our bullpen lineup look like in the playoffs. We have a similar question here from Carlos. Jeff, who are your locks for the bullpen in the postseason? With Brock on the IL and Graterol out, what's your bullpen prediction for the postseason's part 2? If you missed it, myself, Blake, and Daniel did a 40-minute pod making bullpen predictions as a August 12th. Write this out, draft number 1.0, and who we like. At the time, I believe as a group, we had 5 or 6 locks. It was Tanner Scott, it was Blake Trinan, it was Alex Vesia, it was Brock Stewart, and it was Jack Dreyer. Those were the 5 locks. Brock Stewart, obviously injury-wise, up in the air, let's say. Ben Kasparius was in the confident camp, I think, for all of us. Michael Kopech was in the confident camp for all of us. So there's 6 guys that, with Brock Stewart set to the side, there's 6 guys that I feel pretty good about still today being in that group. Then you have the conversation about Brock Stewart. I think Justin Robleski, Anthony Bonda, Clayton Kershaw, Emmett Sheehan would be kind of the next 5 guys. I had Graterol in. I would add. They said very slim chance. It ain't 0, folks. It ain't 0. So if I want to die on the hill of my predictions, it's not 0. But I think Kershaw's in that group. I think Sheehan's in that group. And honestly, I think Brock Stewart, based on what we know today, would also be in that group. So basically, Graterol probably comes off of my list if I was updating it. And really, I think Justin Robleski might be the guy I put in. Like, Bonda, I know, is more of a true reliever. He's more of a known commodity. There aren't a ton of numbers that would suggest Bonda is in any way better than Justin Robleski this year. And so even though it's less of a proven thing, I might go Robleski over Bonda.
The thing that I'd contend that I think gives Bonda a good chance to make it is just his ability. He's so good against left-handed hitters, and almost all of his numbers this year, and why the numbers don't look good, is because of the damage that has been done against him by righties. But when you get to the postseason and you could be facing, these teams, even just looking at the Padres, like, you want a guy to be able to come in and pitch to Luis Arias and pitch to Jackson Merrill. And I think Bonda fits that even better than Robleski. Robleski is a guy who gets everybody out kind of on a similar level for everybody. Bonda's a shutdown versus the lefties, and then you absolutely have to find a way to not have him pitching against a righty in a big spot. Yeah. But it kind of fits the postseason roster to have a guy like that you can turn to. And if it's like, 2 outs and a mid-inning pitching change and Merrill up at the plate, and you can go bring in Bonda and feel like he's going to get you out of the inning.
Yeah, and the guy that we should have mentioned that was on my list was Edgardo Enriquez. And what we've seen from him over the last 2 or 3 days, I think you could make a really compelling case that if you're going to take Brusdar Graterol off a list, Enriquez is literally the Graterol clone that is sitting right there. So he probably deserves it. And the velocity plays up in the postseason.
Yeah, I think Enriquez is a guy that I would feel good about really at any time here. And I know it's a tough time to say that after he blew the game last night, but I already said it earlier in this podcast. Like, he wasn't supposed to be pitching last night, and he still went out there on a day that he should have been getting rest, and he was pumping 103. I know that 103 mile an hour fastball was the one that O'Hoppe got hit on. If you can throw 103, I'm cool. Come in, throw 103 wherever it goes. It's going to be very, very tough to hit, and guys aren't going to hit it. Usually they got burned last night, but that's not something that's going to happen very often if you're throwing 103 with a double plus cutter like he has, and he's added a sinker too. I love it. I think Enriquez is a guy that can play really well in the big league bullpen right now.
Yeah, there's people a lot smarter than me that have seen Enriquez's stuff over the first couple of days and noticed a couple tweaks that the Dodgers have made, and just that sinker that you mentioned and the way that it moves, and it's grading out really, really well. So there's a real shot that he's like a dude for this team down the stretch.
It's literally just throw strikes. That's the only thing with Enriquez. If he is not throwing strikes, then, you're going to have a hard time trusting him in high leverage. But if he just can find the plate in any capacity, then I'd put him up there with anybody else in the bullpen in terms of just pure stuff and the kind of stuff that you can put into an October game and feel like that, the raw stuff is good enough to get outs. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, let's get to some news and notes, injury updates, and then we'll get to some questions here. I kind of referenced this, but Bob Nightingale's son, of the Minnesota Star Tribune, revealed the Dodgers were not that into John Duran or Griffin Jax at the deadline. Interestingly enough, I think the Dodgers actually offered prospects for Brock Stewart, and they said, no, we like James Outman more than the prospects that were offered. So I think Dodgers fans will at least be excited to hear that. Of course, they eventually made that trade, James Outman for Brock Stewart, straight up. But let's get to some injury updates. We mentioned Graterol. The quote from Dave Roberts, quote, "It is possible he does not come back this year. He's not throwing at the moment. There's a, quote, small chance he pitches this season. He did add that Graterol would not need much of a buildup if he is able to get healthy. I'm in the minority here. And again, maybe I'm just biased because I predicted Graterol to be in the bullpen. This to me didn't sound all that different from what we've heard about Graterol all the way along. And so maybe Dave Roberts is just echoing what we've already known. Maybe this is a more dire update, but that is one. Kirby Yates threw in a simulated game. Dave said he could be on a rehab assignment as soon as this weekend. We mentioned him. Tanner Scott will face hitters for the first time this weekend. Dodgers are encouraged by his recovery since he started throwing a couple weeks ago. Let's talk Sasaki and Kopech because they both pitched tonight. Roki Sasaki threw in Oklahoma City. The goal was to get to 3 innings. It did not go well in any way, shape, or form for Roki Sasaki. He finished with 2 innings pitched. He did come out in the third, give up 2 singles without recording it out, and then was removed. His final line, 2 innings, 6 hits, 3 earned, 1 walk. He threw 41 pitches. He got 2 whiffs on 22 swings and just 3 called strikes. But the number that jumps out more than anything else, Bruce, is the fastball. 93.6 mile an hour average velocity on that fastball. That's 2.4 miles an hour down from his yearly average, which was already a problem. So this is like flashing red lights everywhere if you're following Roki Sasaki.
Yeah, this rehab outing couldn't have been any more concerning, to be honest. Like I already was kind of in a place where I wasn't relying on him to be back and really contributing meaningfully this year. I started to get reeled back in a little bit these last couple of weeks as he's been throwing again, and it seems like, okay, maybe there's a chance. I know there was a little bit of talk like he might have gained a couple of ticks back on the fastball. Yeah. And this tonight sends me right back out to where if he comes back this year and contributes meaningfully, I'll be happily surprised, but I'm not going to count on it.
Yeah, he threw a live BP at Dodger Stadium. That was where he was clocked at like 96, 97. But for whatever reason, he goes to Oklahoma City and was not able to replicate that. Right behind him was Michael. I shouldn't say right behind him. Kopech was supposed to follow him, but Sasaki didn't get through the third. So Boyer came in to finish the third. Kopech, 2/3 of an inning, 2 hits, 2 walks, 3 earned runs, and 1 strikeout for Michael Kopech. The underlying stuff, like slightly better. He got 3 whiffs on 8 swings, as well as 2 called strikes. So that's a little bit better than Sasaki. The results, however, pretty disappointing for, again, a guy the Dodgers are like kind of really needing to be back and be back good and be back soon.
It sounds like a continuation. This season for Michael Kopech has been a story of health. He hasn't been healthy, but then when he has been healthy, whether it's the first rehab assignment to Oklahoma City, when he got back up to the Dodgers, his command is gone. And that's what this was tonight. I think that I saw it was like 24 pitches and 10 strikes or something in that realm. So it's concerning to me, and it's certainly brought Kopech a little bit down the pecking order in terms of who I'm willing to trust right now and count that will be back, because anytime that he's pitched this year from the first rehab assignment and all the way to now, his command is like, it already was like fringy last year, just good enough to be playable with his stuff. And now it's so bad that we just mentioned Edgardo Enriquez, and his whole thing is just throw strikes. Kopech seems like he's right in that vein of where Enriquez could be where he's unplayable. That's where Kopech feels like he is right now, and it's certainly concerning for me.
Yeah, Kopech, as I said, threw 24 pitches. 29% of them were in the zone. Just think about that number. 24 pitches, 29% in the zone. He threw 4 cutters and was 0 for 4. He threw 2 changeups and was 0 for 2. He landed his 18 fastballs at a 39% rate. So bad stuff there from Michael Kopech. Some more updates. Brock Stewart, I suppose maybe this is good news. Quote, pretty benign wear and tear on his shoulder, which he went on the injured list for. It's going to be a few weeks before he returns. He got an injection to calm it down. I think it's a week of no throwing or something like that, Dave Roberts added there is no structural damage, and said this is considered best case scenario. They are still expecting him back at some point this season. So again, it's a lot of these, well, he's supposed to come back, to the people in the chat. If he comes back, it's more of that. But again, this is better than he's done for the year, right? Like we might hear that eventually, but at least today, that's not the news we're reporting.
No, it's great news for me, because when he was leaving the clubhouse, I was afraid that he was going to be done, right? And especially when you hear shoulder, it's not a good thing to hear. I'm still, it seems like, sort of in the minority of, I think Brock Stewart could be an absolute X factor for this team if they're able to turn things around, if he gets back healthy. I still think his acquisition was a great move, because I still think he fit the needs of the bullpen pretty much like a glove. He is so good against right-handed batters, and that's what they needed. That was the weakness. They didn't have a righty killer. That's exactly what Brock Stewart is. So they're going to have to be exact with how they use him. I think a couple of these outings since he got to the Dodgers that didn't go quite as well, it was partially because of how they used him. It was a lot of the damage coming against lefties, and that's not what they traded for him to do, right? But the just state of the bullpen, like we already talked about, there's been guys getting put into situations they won't be in the playoffs. There's been guys pitching that won't be on the roster in the playoffs. It's been the same kind of thing for him. So my confidence in Brock Stewart and what he can bring to the team hasn't been shaken at all. I just want to see him back and then put into the right situations to dominate against right-handed batters.
Yeah, the last injury news we have is not much of an update if you were following this yesterday, but Max Muncy was scheduled to be in the lineup before being scratched after he felt soreness in his right side during warmups. He is day-to-day as he gets testing. He did miss a lot of time last year with a right oblique strain. However, Roberts was told by Muncy that it does not feel muscular and that this is not the same as last year. So no game today, no media availability. We got no update on Max Muncy. They talked about giving him, quote, a couple days off. So there's a chance we can cross our fingers he's back in the lineup on Friday, or if not Saturday. If he's out Friday and Saturday, that's when I think there's going to be some serious concern for a guy. We've talked about just how important he is to the Dodgers. Real quick, Bruce, before we end this segment, I want to tease again. Justin Lorber and you joined me for an hour-long conversation that we'll post tomorrow on all platforms, YouTube, all the podcast places, Apple, Spotify, and Google. We talked briefly about it, but the other bit of news that came out, the Dodgers ranked the #1 farm system in all of Major League Baseball. Were you surprised to see them finish in the #1 spot, which, each place has their own rankings. They've been #1 in some, but in Pipeline's rankings, I think they said it's the first time the Dodgers have ever been #1 in their rankings, or at least in like 10 years.
Yeah, it's certainly a positive, and I know that it's not something that makes the current big league struggles feel any better for almost anyone, but it still is something that absolutely matters because it's proof of the Dodger operation that, as you said in the prospect special that'll air tomorrow, the Dodgers aren't a team that has a window, and that's the goal. The window should be forever, and it's something like this that solidifies that that's the case. The Dodger farm system is really good, and there's been a recalibration and an influx of that blue chip kind of talent these last year and a half, where the depth is fantastic throughout the organization. And now up at the top, they've got those top 50, top 100 guys that are really, really stacked right now. Josue De Paula is an absolute stud. Zahir Hope, Jackson Ferris, Mike Sirota, Eduardo Quintero. It's all these guys that are at the top of the system. Really, really good. So it's absolutely a positive thing. Dodgers best farm in baseball.
Yeah, and I see people saying, who cares? And we just talked about the Dodgers have no answers in the bullpen, and they have no answers in the corner outfield. The way you solve that problem is by developing a farm system and allowing these guys to get to AA, to AAA, and to be fringe major league guys, so that when Michael Conforto stinks, you're not talking about Ryan Ward, who got passed over by every team in the league in the Rule 5 draft last year, and saying he's the answer. Why isn't he there? Instead, you're saying, oh, well, we have this guy who's a top 100 prospect who just haven't had space for him. Here he comes, right? It's like, imagine if they had a Dalton Rushing, Alex Freeland type who could play left field. That's the goal. That's why you develop a farm system. And again, I understand if you're mad about the Dodgers today, you don't want to hear anything positive. So hearing the #1 farm system doesn't make your day better. It makes your day worse somehow, because it reminds you they didn't trade any of those guys. I've heard all of that. But I would just suggest, you could be mad at the current Dodgers and also be excited of the fact that they have more top 100 prospects than basically any team in Major League Baseball.
Yep, and there's no banner to be hung for being the top farm system in baseball. So it's not like you're throwing a parade, but it's a positive thing. And me personally, I'm happy that there's something positive around the Dodgers right now with how things have been going.
There's a reason we brought this up at the 55-minute mark of a podcast. Okay,
exactly.
For what it's worth. Michael Carrillo, we appreciate you're here. Copium. Look, I love it. I look at your comments, Michael, and you seem pissed. You seem to hate everything we're saying, but you're in here with us. So I appreciate it, Michael. Thank you for the super chat, and thanks for joining us. We appreciate that. Let's get to some questions, all caps questions. Throw those in the chat. We'll get to as many as we possibly can. As always, if you've got a fun question, you want to talk about something more enjoyable than the 2025 Dodgers at the moment, ask away. Ask us about food things. Ask us about movies we've seen lately, whatever you want to. Let us know. TQT, if Conforto's in the lineup tomorrow in a gigantic series, how do we safely riot? Forewarning, it sounds like Dave has hinted he will be in the lineup tomorrow. Now, Michael King not pitching anymore, so that might change some things. But how do you recommend TQT riots, Bruce, if Conforto is in the lineup?
Take to social media where there's already a very, very strong stream of people that you'll find that you'll be able to riot with.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. Okay, we're gonna go through some of these questions. I'm trying to star them and do this all at the same time. Jose, how many games do we take from the Padres this series? Love the positivity. Feel like fans want you to freak out like that Frank Mets fan. Yeah, we're not that Frank Mets fan. So if you came for him, apologies. How many games do you think the Dodgers take from the Padres, Bruce?
I'll go bold. I'll say they take 2 of 3. I think that they reset things, get back to their brand, and that absolutely could not happen. But I don't think they're going to be swept either way. So I think that they at least take 1, and I'm hoping for 2.
Yeah, give me the sweet, baby. All optimism, all copium. I'm smoking it, inhaling it. Whatever you do with copium, sign me up for it. There we go. Okay, some more questions here. Ederica, why can't Jeff and Bruce say signing and doubling down on Conforto to turn it around was a wrong move by the front office? And given the state of the bullpen, are we going to see Bobby Miller? Signing and doubling down on Michael Conforto was a bad idea. How's that for you, Ederico? I kept thinking he was going to figure it out. He didn't. I'm perfectly content to admit when I am wrong. I kept believing that Conforto was going to turn around. But if you're asking me today, should they have signed him? If I knew what I knew now, the answer would be no. So doubling down, again, you'd have to have a conversation about who was available at the deadline, what it would have cost, is there value? But obviously, I wish the Dodgers had a better option than Alex Call and Ryan Ward and Estuary Ruiz in left field. I wish that.
They butchered this.
Yeah, absolutely. Are we going to see Bobby Miller, Bruce? I haven't seen the last couple of days, but when we did our bullpen video, he had like 5 consecutive innings without a hit allowed, 1 walk, and no runs.
Yeah, so it seems like that he's suddenly on the major league radar at least a little bit again. He was nowhere close to it for a lot of this season, and even as they needed starting pitching like so bad, they almost never turned to him because he wasn't a big league pitcher. He's looking closer to that. I still am kind of in a place of not sure how to trust him all the way. So I wouldn't be surprised if at some point down the stretch here, if he continues to look good in Oklahoma City, they could call him up and throw him in a low leverage spot and see what it looks like and maybe go from there. But I don't think that they're in a place as an organization to say we're going to, take Bobby Miller, who just became a reliever like a month ago, and because of a couple of good games in Oklahoma City, assume that he's going to be a guy that you can put in the bullpen in October, because the stuff was never a problem. So it's not like that you have a guy that couldn't control his stuff or any of the regular reasons that you move someone to the bullpen. Bobby Miller just could not pitch well at the big league level, regardless of his stuff. And there's some mentality thing wrong. So I don't think that you really have any proof that that's fixed until he gets to the big leagues and does well. So there's not any real big bets being placed on Bobby Miller until he gets a chance to do it in low leverage. And then, you see what happens.
Jason wants to know, more likely to have a save this season, Shohei Ohtani or Bobby Miller?
This one's Bobby Miller, because Shohei's not going to ever pitch in relief.
Not even in the postseason? 0%?
No, I don't see it, because it's like, it's so hard to, how do you do it? You send him down to the bullpen while the Dodgers are hitting, and then if a rally starts, then you go, hey, come back. We need you to hit. And then he's sprinting in from the bullpen. Sounds like a comic strip or something. But I don't see that happening, because they're so protective with Shohei Ohtani. You could turn to literally anybody else in the rotation. If you're going to pitch a starter in relief in a spot like that, like Scherzer a couple of years ago or something, choose anybody else. Keep Shohei safe.
Yeah, there you go. Thomas says, why is it a slow process that the Dodgers promote prospects? Every team has prospects debut at 21, 22, or younger. If we promoted faster, then maybe Hope or DePaula would be ready.
So there's a couple ways to approach this. First, I think it's a little bit of an exaggeration that every team has prospects debut that young. You have to be a superb player. Like, you have to be Jackson Chourio to get called up and be that young playing well. And it is really, really hard in this day and age for guys to make that jump from AAA to the majors. I'd argue it's the hardest it's ever been. And we've seen it more and more, where these super prospects come up to the major leagues and really struggle at the beginning. Jack Caglione has not figured it out for the Royals this whole year. And he was like literally the best hitter in minor league baseball. And he hasn't figured it out. Christian Campbell had to get optioned back to AAA for the Red Sox. He's still down in the minor leagues. Like, it's a hard thing to evaluate now. And for a guy like DePaula and a guy like Hope, they're not even close. So they're in the lower minor leagues. They're not even close to the radar. So getting them up to the major leagues is not has not even been a consideration this year. And the Dodgers are careful, and I think that's a good thing. We've seen the Padres try to move guys through their system absurdly fast. We've seen the Angels do the same thing, and it very oftentimes does not work out. I think the Padres have kind of butchered Ethan Salas because they moved him through the lower minor leagues so fast that he got to Double-A when he was 17 or 18, and he has not hit ever since. They screwed that up, and I think it's a good thing the Dodgers are a little bit more careful to make sure when they get blue chip talent like Zahir Hope, like Josue De Paula, they don't derail them over just trying to get them to the big leagues a couple months earlier.
Yeah. And it's worth pointing out the clock starts the quicker that you promote these guys. And so, right. So there's an element of like, if you promote them at 21, they become a free agent more quickly. And so you might miss out on some prime years. There's a little bit of that going on as well, right?
It's that too. And also like for a team like the Dodgers that is always stacked with talent, like first it's hard for guys to break into the big leagues. We've already seen, it's easy to point at like DePaul and Hope and look at left field as a black hole for the Dodgers right now because it is. But like think in years past, there's been guys like Miguel Vargas was stuck in AAA for a while. Michael Busch was the big one. He had literally no way to get to the big leagues, even though he was absolutely big league caliber. So just because there's a hole in left field right now doesn't mean the Dodgers specifically hold prospects down when they have a chance to get up. It's just the stage we're in right now, and those guys aren't close to the big leagues.
Yeah. Francisco, imagine being a YouTube gremlin waiting all day to come into a Dodger-based show to brag about a 1-game lead with 6 games coming. Talk about living rent-free. Absolutely. Perfectly said, Francisco. 10 out of 10 on the super chat there. Okay, let's get to a couple fun. Eric has one more. Why do we think we can get a rally going against a reliever in October? Because we have Shohei Ohtani and we have Freddie Freeman and we have Will Smith and Mookie Betts is better. And we might have Max Muncy and Teoscar Hernandez. And I don't know. I like a lot of those guys. Tommy Edman in the postseason, if he's healthy, like.
Give me the top of the Dodger order against anybody in baseball history, and I'm still going to feel like a rally could start.
Again, I think people miss this. They have literally scored more runs than any team in Major League Baseball. They have the highest weighted runs created plus of any offense in Major League Baseball. The offense is not the issue, at least not so far. Matty Man wants to know, have either of you seen Weapons? I had to Google this. It's apparently a horror film. Are you into this, Bruce?
I haven't seen it yet. I want to. I'm not a huge horror movie guy, but there's been so much chatter around Weapons that I am planning to go see it. Unfortunately, I'm really bad at this kind of thing. I always say I want to go see movies, and then I just don't do it, or I don't have time or whatever, but I really want to go see Weapons. So that's the best I can say.
I'm not a horror film guy, so I have not seen it, and I will not be seeing it. I can assure you of that. So Eden wants to know, what's the best movie you've seen this year? I'm not like a huge movie guy. However, I was on the East Coast last week, and one of my favorite things about flying is I'm like, oh, all these movies that I have not seen in theaters for the last like 12 months, they're now available to me for free on a plane. I watched 2 movies coming back from Boston that I enjoyed both of them. One was called Black Bag, which is really, really good. It's kind of like this spy thriller type movie. Couldn't tell you who was in it, but it was very, very good. And the other one I watched, which was interesting, was Mickey 17, about the guy who like just dies over and over again. So both of those movies were really good. I would prefer Black Bag if I had to choose. So I don't know if that's the best movie I've seen this year, but I really enjoyed Black Bag.
See, I'm drawing an absolute blank, and this proves that I'm not a movie guy either. But see if you can help me. I think it's Robert De Niro, like a one of the mob movies, not The Godfather, but the New York
the Netflix one.
It's on Netflix. I watched it on Netflix.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about because I think that was one of the movies that was available on the plane that I didn't watch. Irishman was what I was thinking of. Alto Nights.
No, it's one of the like all-time classics, and I'm drawing an absolute blank. So I look like an idiot.
Godfather, Goodfellas, one of those.
Goodfellas,
like
okay. Goodfellas. But see, I look like an idiot for not remembering the name to Goodfellas, but I watched that for the first time earlier this year, and that was great. There
you go. Good question. Let's see. Devin wants to know, favorite protein for your burrito.
I'll say ground beef.
Oh, ground beef. Wow, that's going to be a hot take. I can tell you. Over carne asada, over all that.
Yeah, I like a simple ground beef.
You're there already. Good for you.
Mostly because like I like being able to make it myself, and I know how to make ground beef.
Okay, I'm an El Pastor guy. If that's an option, give me El Pastor. Okay. Hawaiian Kira, based on what you've seen or know, what are your top 3 bobbleheads for 2025? Kobe's number one for me. I'm getting a Roki Sasaki bobblehead in the mail. I'm very excited. Shout out to my brother. Thank you for grabbing me one of those. I would love a Kobe one. I doubt I'm going to get it because they're going to be crazy, crazy expensive. If anybody has an extra and they'd like to make a friends and family discount, send me a direct message. But the Kobe one is number one for me, for sure. I'd have to go back and look at the other bobbleheads. But do you have any favorites, Bruce?
Yeah, I'm not a huge bobblehead guy, to be honest, but the Shohei 50/50 bobblehead is probably my number one. The other Shohei bobblehead, I love the Shohei bobbleheads because there's always such a huge attention around it, and it just feels like an event. And then the 3,000 strikeout for Kershaw, I thought that was a pretty cool one.
Yeah, sign me up for the Kershaw. What am I saying? 3,000 strikeout Clayton Kershaw right behind Kobe. So there you go. Man, I would do crazy things to see if I could get my hands on one of those Kershaw ones. There's a soccer team up here in Portland, the Timbers, and they're giving away bobbleheads this weekend, and I unfortunately can't go because I have a wedding. So I literally got tickets and gave them to a friend and was like, these are yours. All I am asking is that you get one of the bobbleheads and you make sure you get it to me. He's like, this is the greatest deal I've ever received. Like, I don't want this little toy they're going to hand me. And so everybody wins. Yeah. Okay. I have one last question for you. I was on the East Coast, and the two food items I was most interested in eating, I was in Cape Cod, so seafood. The first thing I ate was clam chowder. And the reason I ate clam chowder first and not second was because I was told that I was going to be getting a lobster roll that night. So thoughts on clam chowder? And we're talking New England, none of that red crap, Manhattan stuff. New England clam chowder. And then, have you ever had a lobster roll? And are you a fan?
I haven't had lobster roll. I'm going backwards here, but I've had lobster, and I really like lobster when I've had that. Clam chowder, this is I feel like this is going to get a lot of hate, but anybody who's been to San Francisco, the clam chowder you can get like on Fisherman's Wharf, that in the sourdough bread bowl. It's the greatest thing ever. So I know that there's a lot of San Francisco hate here, but it's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, no, you're not going to get hate from me because I'm with you. Sourdough bread bowl, clam chowder is like a 10 out of 10 meal. So I'm with you on that. Yeah, I think French toast. I had an unbelievable French toast, and I got into an argument with some people on social media about how French toast is better than waffles and pancakes as well. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, give me those rankings: pancakes, waffles, and French toast.
I'm throwing waffles 1, pancakes 2, and then French toast 3. They're all great, but French toast.
You say French toast 3rd?
Yeah, French toast is 3rd.
French toast is so good. So good. I think waffles, like top tier waffles, are fantastic. Like, I love Eggos. I mean, I love all of them. Like, it's the same thing. Like, a bad pancake is the worst of any of the options, in my opinion. But like a good pancake, a good waffle, and great French toast is close. I just think French toast is like a guarantee I'm going to enjoy it. There's like no chance I'm not enjoying French toast. So there you go. Matty Man says he feels better after the stream. I don't know if it was the lobster roll. I don't know if it was you saying you like ground beef in your burrito. I'm not entirely sure. It was Cole. This is interesting. He says lobster roll with butter or mayo. So there's cold lobster rolls that come with mayo, and there's hot lobster rolls that are served with melted butter. This one was fascinating, and the bride picked it out. But it was a lobster roll that was hot, but then had like a chipotle aioli on top of it. So it was kind of the best of both worlds in a way, where it was a hot lobster roll, but had a little bit of the mayonnaise chipotle aioli stuff going on. So 10 out of 10. It was fantastic. They had this other thing called the stuffed quahog, which our guy David calls clams casino, I believe. It's like stuffing and clams mixed together and then put back in the clamshell. It was pretty solid. So we had great food in Cape Cod. Shout out to Cape Cod. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for us tonight. We mentioned it multiple times. Tomorrow morning, check out a full hour-long podcast breakdown. Bruce and Justin Lorber, aka Future Dodgers, we talked about their top 10 prospects. We talked about guys they disagreed on. We talked about guys they like more than everybody else, guys they dislike more than anybody else, guys that nobody's talking about, guys that you've never heard of, all sorts of stuff. It was a great conversation. Both these guys are amazing. So check that out. I love Michael says Jeff's bragging about how rich he is. I can assure you, I am not bragging about how rich I am. I paid for none of it. I don't know if you've ever been to a wedding, but you don't pay for any of those things. So that's the amazing part. Enjoy the rest of your night, everybody. Subscribe, ring the notification bell here on YouTube. You can check out the podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google. Go ahead, subscribe, rate, review. We would greatly appreciate that. Enjoy the rest of your night, everyone. As always, go Dodgers. And yes, more than ever, we need to remind ourselves, still freaking champs.